He's a former United States congressman and a candidate for president of the United States. He's not been afraid to question the status quo, and he's definitely not afraid of us. He's Dr. Ron Paul, and he's a legend among the freedom-loving people of America. We're thrilled that we got to spend 30 minutes with Dr. Paul, and you're not going to want to miss a single beat of today's interview. Also, we've got an origin story for you. No, it's not a superhero, but it was early 2017 that I finally went down the crypto rabbit hole, which eventually brought us to where we are today. You're going to meet Daven Michaels, the man who is responsible for providing me with the gentle shove down the hole that I was cautiously gazing into. Seated behind our cardboard microphones in the Republic of Bad Cryptopia, we welcome you to episode number 382 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition.
Who's bad?
And greetings, friend, heard around the world. It's the Bad Crypto Podcast. I'm Joel Comm.
And I am Travis Wright.
And he is right about that. He's not wrong.
That is true.
And he's very zen at the moment.
That is true. Yeah, I've just been going through, there's a lot of craziness going on in the world. And so I've been diving more deeply into really long meditations to get rid of this fear stuff that's been going on and this panic that's stricken everyone. So I literally finished like about an hour meditation, and then I look on my messenger, and Joel Comm sent me like 15 messages, 10 messages. Come on, we need to record. We got to do this thing. I'm like, what? It's not on my schedule. I didn't see it anywhere on my. I didn't see anything on my calendar.
Stay zen. Stay zen, Travis. Stay zen.
Yeah.
Hey, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Upland. They have just updated the app. If you haven't used upland.me yet for iOS or Android, what are you waiting for? Finally, a blockchain game that we think is getting it right. They just came out with their Mojito update, which allows you to find treasures, piñatas that are full of their UPX token. I've done it twice, Travis. I found the piñatas.
Well, that's very fancy. I'm actually about to go drink a mojito.
Okay. Hey, if you guys haven't signed up yet, go to badco.in/upland and do it on your mobile device, because when you do, you'll get 6,000 UPX tokens instead of the regular 3,000 that all those other peoples get. We want to give you guys bonus. badco.in/upland.
So, folks, as we typically do now when we have an amazing guest on the show, we like to create an NFT for that, a non-fungible token that is a tradable digital asset. And the only people who can get it are the ones who are listening to this show right now. And in this episode, we will give you the link that you need to listen, to go click on it, and then to go claim your NFT. All you need to do is have your Ethereum address handy. That's for like on your Trust wallet or on your Alpha wallet or whatever. Not one that's on Coinbase, not one that's on any exchange, the one that you own the private keys for. And we're going to tell you about that because Dr. Ron Paul is here with us today. And let's get into that.
And we're privileged to be here with Dr. Ron Paul. He needs no introduction. We're just going to jump right in. And Dr. Paul, I actually want to start with a softball or a soft Paul question for you. You had the opportunity to work alongside your son, who I'm sure you're incredibly proud of. And I just want to know, what was it like serving in the Senate alongside him?
Well, he was in the Senate. I was in the House.
You were in the House. That's right.
And that was unusual because I don't think it ever happened before where the father was in the House and the son was in the Senate. And we were there together for 2 years. He was elected, I think, in 10, and then I left at the end of 12. And when one time we were being interviewed together, and they were sort of poking fun at me, you're just in the House and he's a senator. And I told him, I said, you know what, if he does a real good job in the Senate, maybe he too someday may get elected to the House of Representatives. So we didn't, he was so busy setting up and all their activities. And even though they're so close, I think for the first year or so, he did stay with me at a condo because he hadn't set up. But we didn't cross paths on a daily basis on a lot of things, even though he did introduce things like audit the Fed and a few other things, because philosophically we have to be pretty close. But the Senate operates, completely differently. The activities and the opportunities are different than they are in the House. But it was fascinating, and I think he was quite pleased that he was able to achieve what he had, and I was pretty surprised that he ran first time, and won a Senate seat.
Mm-hmm. That Paul last name is pretty powerful. You guys are doing some epic stuff over there. And actually, Joel mentioned this before we started. He goes, "Your name's Ronald Ernest Paul, so your initials are Rep. So like you were destined to become a representative. It seems."
Yeah. Yeah, made it convenient.
It is. So we're Bad Crypto, right? We like to talk about cryptocurrency, and we had the opportunity to meet you in Aspen at the Aspen Institute at a conference back in 2017. We had a brief conversation, and so let's maybe talk about it. I know that our listeners are really curious about your official stance on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and maybe is it sound money according to you?
Well, I think it's up for grabs. I don't think it's been decided. It took about 6,000 years for people to decide whether gold was money, and now Bernanke tells me it's not. So it's always up for grabs and making decisions. Of course, from the Austrian school, we've been taught that money comes out of the marketplace, and it's usually a commodity. I don't get into that part of the crypto. I go to a lot of cryptocurrencies. I just came back from Acapulco, a big conference there. And my position is very interesting to those who are interested in currencies and are concerned like I am. We share a concern about what's happening to the country, what's happening to the dollar. The fiat dollar is a mess. The spending is too high, all of that stuff. And therefore, there's an alliance. And there was another thing that I did in Congress. I did go to Congress mainly because I started running over on the monetary issue and the breakdown of the Bretton Woods. And that is something that I think is very important. And I spent time. I was on the banking committee the whole time. And one of the things I pushed hard was the problems that we have, that this dollar is fragile. It's causing a lot of trouble. It causes all the booms and the busts and finances the evils of all war and all the welfare state. And that something has to be done. So instead of me saying, I know what we have to do, I know how to do it, but when you do that and you do it through the government gets too powerful. Anytime there's a reform done and the government's doing it, they're not going to make it any better. So my whole idea was to follow the Hayekian viewpoint that the markets decided about money for thousands of years. Let the market do it. Get rid of all the legal tender laws and make it legal for people to have competing currencies. But then again, under those circumstances, you still have the problem that governments always want to control money, over the centuries they have. And I've warned people when I talk at these conferences that the government is going to be your threat. We know what's coming. We know we have to do something. So my answer to all this is not saying, I know exactly what you ought to do with crypto, is I know exactly what we ought to do with developing a society and promoting the individual liberty and letting individuals and private sources make the decision. So that's where my concentration is.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so many rabbit holes we can go down here. I think since you mentioned gold being money and us deciding that, perhaps that's what it indeed was, do you think there's a chance that we'll ever go back to a gold standard?
Well, we're always on a gold standard. Is not official, but central banks are buying up gold now, and everybody measures. It used to be easy before Bretton Woods broke down. Everything was measured in terms of the dollar, and dollar was convertible into gold at $35 an ounce. No, I don't think we'll go back to a gold standard. I think gold will be used, but I think in the modern age, it might be used differently. That's why I don't want government messing up, because the folks I knew at the banking committee and everybody I met on the Federal Reserve, They didn't convey confidence to me that they cared about my freedoms or the limitation of government size. They cared about power and control, and that's gotten much worse. I mean, this one element of the deep state that is very much sought after, and that is the control of money and the finances and controlling interest rates and the bailout, controlling budgets. That's where the real problem is. I think ultimately, when I saw what was coming in the 60s, I decided, well, this gold thing sounds like it's pretty important. So I would buy coins here and there, and I always figured that was a backup, a safety net, because I believed that something would happen to the dollar, and something has happened. One time, at that time, you could convert $35, at least foreigners could, into an ounce of gold. Now it takes a few more dollars to get an ounce of gold. But I think ultimately that's what people think about. Even now, with the move toward central banks buying gold, individuals are buying gold. But I still think the most important thing that we do is protect our freedoms in order to pick and choose of what we want to do. And of course, it's the issue of liberty that is key. So even if I could say, well, Ronald, we want you to write up the perfect government-run gold standard. Well, the founders tried to do that, and it was not a perfect gold standard. And the governments abuse it, and it always goes in the directions of fiat. So that's why the worst thing you can do is make gold illegal or make crypto illegal. That's where the real threat is. But heck, in this country, first, it was illegal from 33 up till 1975 for Americans to gold. This is astounding. So that was a step in the right direction. And I think people do watch the gold prices. The market is still there. And some people think in terms of gold, but a government gold standard, your question is, are we going to have a government gold standard announced next week because there's chaos in the financial markets right now? No, we're not going to do that. We might have a monetary reform, but it'll be a deep state controlled monetary reform. It'll be under the IMF or the United Nations or something and dictate. And I'm fearful that they will use a digital currency, and they even could pretend and say, all right, we have a worldwide digital currency. Crypto's great. And we'll just link it to gold, which will probably be just a bunch of lies. So it may go to that. And it's only free people can make these decisions. If you want to use cryptocurrencies, if you don't cheat people, whether if you're diluting the coins and cheating people on gold or whether people cheat on crypto, that's the important thing. And right now, though, the most likely source of the cheating comes from our governments. They've been involved in cheating on the monetary system, throughout history.
Let me unravel what you just said about that. What really scares you is a digital currency ran by maybe the IMF. Are you talking like with that special drawing rights thing that they were talking about, was digitizing all assets and putting them on the blockchain, and then we all are tied to this sort of a thing? Is that? Yeah,
I think something along that. The special drawing rights have been around, since the IMF was started way back. And it still holds some gold. So they're very much involved. But yes, they're talking about having an international order that would do that and probably try to steal some credibility by saying, oh yeah, well, we have this gold and it'll be linked, which is not believable. The only way it is, whether it's crypto or gold, the people have to have total control of it. And quite frankly, that's where our biggest threat is. If you had a currency that was truly convertible to gold, the government still knows every single thing we do. And this invasion and control of our lives totally and completely, that is a great threat. And the monetary system should be one that can get us out of it. And that always fascinated me about crypto. It would be anonymous and it would be secret and nobody could know what's going on. But in the early years when crypto was coming out, I can remember having conversations in the banking committee, and I was really surprised that the first time Bernanke answered a question for me was that he wasn't negative. He wasn't saying, oh, this is the answer and this is what we're going to do. He was very, very, very tolerant of this. We'll just see what happens. And I think, unfortunately, the government, the technology, I don't think blockchain technology was an invention of a politician. I think somebody outside of politics did it, but they're interested, believe me. And, that whole system, like so many things in life, if it can be used or for evil, you can have nuclear power, give you nuclear energy, or you can bomb the world. So I think so much of this technology, whether it's the crypto technology or the gold understanding, it depends on people. And our founders were very much aware of this. And when they were asked about the Constitution, they said it's a republic and you can have it if you can keep it. But immoral people can't make the Constitution work. And so this, if it's pure survival for a small number of people will have to use it, and people are doing this, but it's such a small number compared to what we have to look at now, tens of thousands of people in America out on the streets, defecating on our streets. There's some real problem, and it's related to the monetary system. It's related to the fact that there's a transfer of wealth and a maldistribution of wealth through a fiat paper system that we have. So it's all interconnected, but survival, it'd be very, very important, but the last thing we need is to go back to bartering, but in a way, gold is a very modern, fancy way of bartering. You have intermediary, and crypto may well be able to handle all this. But I profess not to know much about the technology, so I don't make the decision. Oh, I know this is going to work. This is going to work. All I want to do is give everybody, a chance to try it in a free market and prove that it's going to work. But no matter how perfect the gold standard could be, it all depends on the government. And why should we think that the government, they didn't protect our gold standard? They destroyed the gold standard. That's what got my attention all through the 60s. Wow, this is something. It's the government doing it. And they're ushering in this age of no restraints whatsoever, which is the big day, August 15th of 71. And that meant that government would grow by leaps and bounds, and this would serve the interest of our empire. And we have a reserve currency. We are going to be the most powerful, wealthiest country in the world for a while, and then it will go in a different direction.
Speaking of reserve currency, we recently had Edward Griffin, who I'm sure you're friends with, on the show, talking about the creature from Jekyll Island and the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve has never been publicly audited. Do you think we're ever going to get to that place? Is the government going to allow that?
No, we've made a lot of progress. Nobody even hardly talked about it, because there was no interest. But that was my thing that I talked about a whole lot, and had a bill, audit the Fed, written books about why the Fed should be abolished. And we actually, to my surprise, we had two different votes on the House floor, and won by large margin, because it was the transparency argument that people ought to know this is important. So people in the last 20 or 30 years have become aware of the Federal Reserve more so than ever. And we pass it in the House, but to pass it in the House and pass it into the Senate, get a president to sign this, and then endorsed by the deep state, no, it's not going to happen. We will always return to something that is sound, that the people trust, and exactly what that'll be is hard to understand. But up until now, it's usually been that it would resort to going back to gold. But it will not be done by getting a few more members of Congress. That's not going to happen. Nothing changes with what's in Washington. And a lot of people say, well, what were you doing there for? Why were you there if you don't really believe that's going to change much? It was mainly because I got involved just to speak out and maybe get a couple people to listen. So if that is the case, I think that the real change comes philosophically. That's why I'm involved with the Mises Institute and my own organizations and my Liberty Report, is trying to change people's mind. I mean, right now, think of the challenge we have with the clowns that, oh yeah, we love socialism, and the American people are listening to that. At the same time, I go to conferences in places like Aspen, and I see a lot of young people excited, even though I don't come down and say, well, I know everything you need to know about cryptocurrencies. Young people, which I met many thousands over the 2 presidential campaigns, that are really interested. So I'm impressed by that. And I still speak out, and there's a lot of people that way. So to me, it's ideological, and money is a really important issue of it. But the bottom line is self-ownership. Who owns your life, and what you can do with it, and reduce the authoritarianism that exists with all the major parties.
I really want to thank you, Dr. Paul, for all that you've done in raising awareness. Like, we're here on Bad Crypto. We talk to people all the time who've never even heard the term fiat currency, right? Like right. That's something that people weren't aware of, but now more and more people are. That's in their vernacular. Like, it's in the general consciousness now of people. Oh wow, they print money from thin air. People weren't aware of that. Like, to me, I became awoke in the year 2000. And slowly, once I realized they could print $100 bill for 6 cents, and how are we trillions of dollars in debt? And which is just crazy. And so I really want to thank you for all that you've done in this space. And I want to ask you now, as a physician and as someone who studies, economies around the world, what are your thoughts on this, potential pandemic, or the thing? Is this coronavirus thing? Is it fear-based? Are they trying to tank the markets? Are we looking at fiction, nonfiction? What are we dealing with? Do we have any idea on how to look at this thing and how it's going to maybe impact the global economy?
Well, there's a lot of motivation. Sincere people who are misguided, and some people who get scared easily, and a lot of information that we don't have yet. But I think just in general, and I've done a lot of talking about this on my report, in general, I think it's way overhyped. And I tell people the story that in my first week in Congress in 1976, we had a scare with swine flu virus, and it came in, and it was going to wipe out the population of the earth. And Ford was the president. It was political, and he got the Congress to pass a $135 million thing to inoculate everybody in the country. And I thought, I didn't come here for this. I practice medicine, but this is not medicine. This is crazy. So I started speaking out against that, and I only could get one other person to agree with me, and that was another doctor from Georgia, Larry McDonald. So the 2 doctors voted against it. It turned out that they inoculated 45 million people, half the people they planned to inoculate. The drug companies made a lot of money. It was such a disaster they had to quit the program. Nobody died from the flu, and quite a few people died from the inoculation. So that's my guide, that it goes slowly. First, do no harm. No, I think it's very serious. But we in this current flu season, there have been 10,000 Americans die from flu. And I don't think we have any deaths from flu. And children don't usually get this new virus. So there's a lot of unknowns. I think it's way overblown. But I always caution that, if you say that, oh, you don't care, you're careless about it. No, it could be, people do die from it. You have to be careful. But I think there's a lot of harm being done by over-exaggerating it. And it'll probably take another year or so to find out. On that one in 76, after 6 months, the flu died down, and they were still inoculating people. So they finally discontinued the program. They're working desperately for a vaccine for the coronavirus. But by the time they get something, the quite frankly, I've already made up my mind. I don't want it because I think it would be more dangerous than catching the flu or catching the coronavirus. But people who are sick, the people who die from flu, these 10,000 people who died in this country this year, they're usually elderly people, poor people, not well-nourished people who have other illnesses. And, when you have millions of people to deal with, you have it. But now I think it's like no deaths, and you probably have a dozen or two that have had it. So I don't lie awake worrying about it. I worry about overreaction by do-good politicians.
Maybe instead of worrying about coronavirus, we just pop open a Corona and have
a
cool
there you
one.
Go.
So you referenced socialism a little earlier, and I've got a twofold question for you. One is the idea that democratic socialism is somehow different from traditional socialism as we understand it. And two, if Bernie Sanders were to get the nomination, do you see him having a chance to beat the president in the 2020 elections?
Yeah, he's not going to. I don't think he'll be the nominee. I don't think he can be elected. I think the kind of news we heard yesterday about him saying that Castro was a great person, he essentially have eliminated any chance of winning anything in Florida. The democratic socialism, philosophically, it's easy to attack because democracy is hardly a system that you want to brag about because it's a dictatorship of the majority. And socialism is a force and violence. I mean, we're dealing with philosophically, it should be easy to say these people are violent. They have to steal all this stuff. Do you realize they're spending trillions and trillions of dollars? It's a good chance to talk about the silliness of printing money. So this is something that shouldn't happen, but it has. But it's a reflection of the system that we have of education. It's also the reason why I have a homeschooling group to try to teach them something differently. And one other thing before we have to go on this subject of education, people worry about the percentages that we have, and we were talking about earlier how many young people actually care. But I was always told by a good Austrian economist, it's not a numbers game. It's a philosophy game, and whether it's the communists or what, I just think that socialism is marching along with Sanders, but there's probably only 100 or so, people, a small minority. So it is a percentage. You don't have to have 51%. To agree with everything you do. You have to be in leadership and you have to participate in education. So a program like yours is involved in education because you want to talk about the real issue of how you run an economy, and that has to do with a monetary fair. You would have to understand monetary fair. That's what people need to, and they're not going to get it in government schools. So that's what has to happen. I'm convinced that you mentioned earlier that a lot of people have awakened about the Federal Reserve and fiat money. I'm convinced that what you said about that, it would work. That I've always claimed that if I had a 12-year-old or a young person like that, we could explain that principle to them. All you have to do is get a piece of paper and say, is this money? They would grasp it right away. And I remember my discovery of that. It was the first year I was in college. They talked about, paper money. Holy man, this is really weird.
Yeah.
But as long as it works for a while and it's something for free, people go along with it. And that's our big problem. Too many people think they're going to get something for free, and they don't think anything of the payment they make in sacrificing their liberties. That's the issue that has to be emphasized.
So true. Let me ask one question. So Matthew Aaron used to host Crypto 101, and he said, ask him this. Predictions on upcoming crypto regulations from Mnuchin. So Stephen Mnuchin, they're talking about some regulations around crypto. How should maybe they even approach crypto regulations? And what are your thoughts on, because he threw out some fear-based stuff recently, like, oh, it's garbage and crypto's bad. So How should we be looking at regulation?
Well, just figure that they know more than most of us know, because they, like I mentioned, Bernanke was very tolerant of looking at it very early on. And, these exchanges, most people, I think, and I don't know the system, so I can't say, most people use exchanges and they go back and forth. And then if you don't pay your taxes, the IRS is knocking on your door. So that they'll do it. Governments are very, very powerful, and you have to fight it the best you can and get support. But and it's not written. The real regulations, banking regulations, what the Fed does. Just think they can create $1 trillion. Well, this past week they might have created $1 trillion. Try to keep the stock market from dropping, a couple thousand points instead of 1,000 points. They can create it. It's outside the budget, and they ask no questions. And so they already have tremendous power. Think of our national security. Even the president, when he's trying to do something right, the national security, he might have people that hate his guts and want to kill him in his administration. So it's so powerful that I think the regulations are going to come if they can take a sort of a quiet time in our history, in many sense, and decide that, well, we don't want the American people to own gold. Well, that should have been fighting words. What if they said that today about guns? Fortunately, the American people won't give up their guns. They gave up their gold much sooner. But they took away the right to own gold, and that is so basic constitutional. But no, they go along with it, and it's scary as far as I'm concerned. But I don't question for a minute about their ability to regulate. If they've already knocked on doors of people that exchange their crypto at the exchanges, and they get a call from the IRS, and we know you have to pay some taxes on what you made on this. And I know there's ways to get around that too, but governments are very abusive, and that's why I think we should have very, very small government.
Dr. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. In the last minute, would you just go ahead and if you could say some words that would inspire the next generation, what would you like them to know?
Well, I think the most important thing to know is that we live in exciting times. They're very, very much fun. We should be able to benefit from all the luxuries in spite of all these horrors in the last 100 years. Just think of what has happened. My dad delivered milk in a horse and buggy, and I just think now we send people to the moon. The technology is unbelievably successful, and the standard of living for a lot of people have gone up, except it's been mal-distributed. And that the most important thing to do is the understanding of personal liberty and personal responsibility, that the sacrifice that you have to give your give authority to one's government to tell you what to do, that we should just have one simple rule, that it's your life. You can do with it what you want. Suffer the consequences if you make mistakes. You can't steal, rob, kill, or hurt other people. One simple rule, which most of all the great religions adore: no lying, cheating, stealing, or killing. So simple, it should bring us together for everything. It's a message that's been hinted around for thousands of years, but I think it needs to be really ignited, because most people say, yeah, I don't think we should hurt people. I don't think we should steal from people. I don't think we should, cheat people. And we shouldn't kill people. They agree. But then all of a sudden, except when, there's a bad guy in Ukraine, we got to go kill him or something like that. And so we violate those laws. No, I think there's reason to be optimistic. And I think that we have advanced technologically way ahead of our ability to know how to get along with people. And that's where the advancement has to be, because technologically, as far as caring for people and raising a standard of living, it's the defects in government that makes the problem. But that means that individuals have to assume responsibility for themselves, that, yes, use your life as you choose. You can even be selfish and do other things as long as you don't hurt other people. But you can't put the burden of your problems on your neighbor and send the government over there to take from your neighbor and it's something you want or something you think you need. It's just understanding the principles of liberty. It's really not all that complicated.
So is it happening?
Oh, slowly. I think this message is stronger than ever. I think we're way ahead of it outside of Washington. If you measure it by our monetary system and our economic system, no, they're still in charge. They still have a ways to go before it self-destructs. The big question is, are they going to be listening to a few of us that makes these suggestions, or are they going to say, we need Bernie Sanders and give him all the power he wants because he'll fix it? But the saying goes that all forms of government exist only because the people tolerate it. And when it gets to the point, even the worst of dictators, even the Soviet system, eventually the people reject it. And that's what we have to be aware of. And it looks like that's about time for me to go.
Sir, thank you for your time today. We tip our hats to you for your service to America, and God bless you, sir.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
So honored that we got to spend some time with Dr. Paul Travis. I mean, usually you're at a conference, you get to meet him, maybe shake his hand and spend 30 seconds, with him adulating about, how much you appreciate what he's done. But for him to give up 30 minutes of his time to speak with us and to share with the Republic of Bad Cryptopia, what an honor.
That was an amazing honor, and I feel very privileged to be able to do that with you, Mr. Joel Comm. And great interview, great insights, really amazing guy. Of all the people in politics over the last 50 years, he was the one that I think has inspired me the most, inspired so many people to reevaluate how we look at freedom in America and how we look at the Constitution, how we look at money. I mean, how many people did he wake up about sound money and audit the Fed and end the Fed? I mean, the guy's just a luminary, and so great to be able to chat with that guy.
Absolutely. And we did get to record a video of the interview. So if you go to the Bad Crypto Mastermind at badco.in/mastermind, that's on Facebook, just join that group and join the thousands of others that are there talking crypto things. You'll be able to see the video of this. And we will be announcing the NFT for this episode here after our next interview. But speaking of sound money, the government wants your sound money. Tax time is just a month away, gang, here in the United States of America. And if you are not protected with your crypto taxes, you could get in some serious trouble. You do not want to get a letter from the IRS about your crypto taxes. You want to make sure that you handle it properly. So you need Crypto Tax Audit. It's the only tax audit defense system designed for crypto owners. If you go to cryptotaxaudit.com, there's do-it-yourself instructions and audit protection. Go check it out today, cryptotaxaudit.com.
So I got a question, Mr. Joel Comm. So when we were talking about this, I mean, the introduction for this next interview with Daven Michaels, you said that he was the one that helped you kind of finally go down the rabbit hole. But we were kind of talking about the rabbit hole stuff in like 2016 and blockchain and stuff. But he was the guy who finally pushed you off the ledge, or what?
Yeah. So basically, I remember you messaging me in 2016, asking me my thoughts on Bitcoin. And, I've talked about it on the show before, because I didn't really understand it. I really didn't know what to think about it. And I didn't really engage too much on that conversation. So you were one of the people that was a seed planter. You were a Travis Appleseed, if you were. A Travis Satoshi seed. And it was at a conference in 2017 where I encountered my friend Daven Michaels. And he was the one that gave me the nudge. In fact, let's let the interview do the talking. Here's my conversation with Daven Michaels. Here in beautiful Puerto Rico with my friend Daven Michaels, who a lot of you can blame for something that we're going to get into here in just a moment.
Right.
I've known Daven for 12, 13, 14 years from the internet marketing space.
That's right.
And we go way back, and now, we're both in the crypto world.
Big time.
And What a beautiful location.
It ain't bad. It ain't bad.
This is the life, huh?
It is.
For those of you that are able to see the video on the Facebook Mastermind at badco.in/mastermind, you'll be able to see the view and Daven's little pooch here. This is Penny.
Penny, the perfect puppy.
She is, what is she?
She's a Maltipoo.
She is so freaking cute. And we're now fast friends, aren't we?
She's the love of my life.
She has nothing to say. She's very quiet.
She is. She's my little girly.
You are a business owner, an entrepreneur.
Yep.
You are the founder and creator and chief cook and bottle washer at 123employee.com.
That's right. That's right. For the last decade plus.
Yeah. So elevator speech, what 123employee is.
Sure. We're the premier outsourcing centers in the Philippines. We work with entrepreneurs. We work with entrepreneurs.
I love entrepreneurs.
We work with entrepreneurs all over the globe and some of the biggest thought leaders on the planet, including yourself. And we do all the busy work in their business, everything from internet marketing, social media, customer service, all the busy stuff in their business so they can focus on the income generating stuff in their business. Our mission at 123employee is to rescue lifestyle starved entrepreneurs, give them their time back and their lives back. And
that is a great elevator speech. You can tell you've given that one
a couple times,
many times. And I have used your services in the past.
Yes, and we actually you exited a business. You had a very nice exit from that business.
I did exit. Yeah. I exited multiple businesses,
yes.
And now here I am in the crypto world, and you are partially to blame.
I am.
You know, visiting you here in Puerto Rico. A lot of people call it Crypto Rico because the crypto community is here. It was almost 3 years ago. I want to say it was March of 2017 that you and I were speaking at a Ken MacArthur conference, the Impact event in Denver.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it was
my hometown.
That's right.
And you brought up cryptocurrency. Do you remember the conversation?
I think it was kind of like this. I think you actually came up to me and you said, Dav, I know you're doing the crypto thing. I've been thinking about getting into it. And I was like, dude, you got to get into it. And I think we sat down. I showed you what I was doing. I showed you what was happening. And you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to make the plunge. I'm like, dude, you have got to make the plunge. And you're like, yeah, you know what? This is it. I'm going to do it.
You mentioned Bitcoin. You mentioned Ethereum. That's the first time I heard about stellar lumens. It was at 2 cents at the time. But here's what's really interesting. I remember hearing from some other peer, and I don't know who it was, probably as early as 2013 or 14, some people talking about Bitcoin. And what's really unusual is
you're the trendsetter.
I'm there.
Always. You're that guy.
Cool new thing.
Yep.
Bright, shiny object. What is this? And for whatever reason, I neglected looking further into it because I didn't understand this whole concept of mining.
Yeah, and I had the exact same thing. As you know, Mike Taggart was a great friend of ours. He was a super early adopter. I think he started buying
Still is a friend.
Yep, absolutely. And I think he started buying it $40, maybe it was even less. And he and I shared a 3-hour steak dinner together back when it was around $40. And I said, explain this Bitcoin thing to me. And he sat there for 3 hours, told me the whole thing. And at the end, I was like, I just, nope, I don't get it. And I
you still didn't get it.
And I didn't get in. And actually, the way I got in, thank the gods. It was one of our clients, Eric, at 123. And what happened was, he called me one day, and he was one of our larger clients, and he said, "Hey, can we pay you in Bitcoin?" Now, at the time, people were not talking about Bitcoin yet, but I had friends that were exiting big companies, and there were two trends that I noticed. One was that they were all investing in startups. It was very trendy to do that. And two, they were buying up Bitcoin. They were buying up crypto. And that's all I knew. And so I said, sure. I said, I'll take your Bitcoin. I said, I don't know what to do. You got to tell me how to do it. He said, open up a Coinbase account. I said, okay. And he sent me $180K. Now, I was very fortunate that he owed me that much money for the month, because at the time you couldn't get $180K into your Coinbase account, right? It just wasn't possible. It wasn't easy. And he transferred that money to me in a very short amount of time. That money doubled. And
you're like, yes, I'll take your Bitcoin.
Yes.
And now tell the whole world, anybody want to pay me in Bitcoin?
Yeah. At that point, that's when I literally started to kind of take whatever I could scratch together, and I started investing.
I don't know what it was about that time that we had that conversation, because if I go back to my Facebook Messenger account, after the election ended, because Travis and I had been friends and we were always back and forth on Messenger about the election, I want to say it was sometime in December-ish that he asked me a question about Bitcoin, and I kind of poo-pooed it. So, there was all these little seeds being planted, and there was just something about our meeting that I opened my Coinbase account, and it took weeks to get stuff approved then.
Yeah,
and it wasn't until May that I was able to actually get money into the account and make my very first Bitcoin purchase.
Yeah, I had an unfair advantage. I was so lucky, and I owe Eric everything.
Maybe send him a Bitcoin.
Yeah, I need to send him a lot of Bitcoin.
There you go. Yeah. Nice little tip.
Yeah.
But the rest, of course, is history. And now you're here in Puerto Rico for the same reasons as many other Americans.
Yep, the sunshine and the
and what's the tax situation here?
Yeah, so Puerto Rico has a very favorable tax situation for people that actually live here, become permanent residents, and yeah, that's what initially attracted me to Puerto Rico. But what has really kept me here is, it's as you can see here, it's paradise. The weather is great all year long. It's gorgeous. I had always dreamt of living in the Caribbean, and I'd never really thought it was going to happen. And here I am. And what has really kept me here, though, also is the community. The people in Puerto Rico are lovely. They're the nicest people on the planet.
But the worst drivers. The worst drivers. I rented a car here. Oh my gosh. They drive slow in the left lane, which, by the way, I found out why.
Slow. Oh, there is actually, I know.
There's actually a reason.
Yeah, what's the reason?
So John Lee Dumas, we had dinner with him last night. In a whole crew of interesting people that you've gotten to meet here. And he explained to me that the people who have lived here a long time, traditionally, because the roads are old, the government would work on the left lane only, and the right lane was notorious for having more potholes, at least in the past. It's been fixed, but the people who drive in the left lane have that old school mentality soon. So they don't care if they're driving super slow. They're in the left lane because those are the better roads.
Gotcha. So there's no left lane, right lane etiquette. Okay.
No.
Well, that would
and they stop dead in the middle of the road. Nuts. They bob and weave between the lanes like they're drunk. Who knows? They might be.
Yeah.
But everybody has been super nice.
Yeah. And I literally, you're on island time, so I may order a plumber, and the plumber's supposed to show up on Monday, and they show up on Friday. But you know what? I never get upset about any of it because the Puerto Rican people, like I said, are so lovely. There's no point. But we love the people, and the community here is just amazing because of the tax incentives here. It is just drawing.
Let's talk about that for a moment. Sure. Okay, let's be specific. Now, Puerto Rico is a territory that is owned, part of the United States, but it's not a state. There's no voting representative in Congress.
Right, they just kind of hang out.
But they get the benefits of being Americans, right? So
we vote. We get to vote in the primaries. We don't get to vote for
not in the
president.
general.
Yeah, we don't get to vote for president.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's talk about specifically the tax code. Why is it that so many people with money are moving here?
Yeah, we pay 0% capital gains and 4% income tax,
and that's it.
Yes,
that's it. So. Let's put this in perspective. Let's say you sold $1 million. Let's just say you net $1 million. Okay. In the United States, $1 million net taxable income would cost you, depending upon the state, about 40%, about $400,000.
Well, it depends. Remember, it has gotten less favorable to actually be here because since Trump got into office, it got a lot less expensive in the U.S., right?
Well, let's say 300,000.
Yeah, that's
all right. So your taxes are 300,000 if you live in the United States.
Here it would be about 4K. Or 40K. 40K.
Okay, huge difference. So basically, your tax savings for living here
could pay for your house.
Could just buy a place outright
on an annual basis.
And so the requirements for doing that are living here
Yes. So the litmus test, there's a couple of them. So number one, which is paramount, is time. You have to actually live here. You have to be here at least half the year.
Yeah, that would suck being
Yeah,
there.
it's
horrible.
It's not a bad gig. Number two is a closer connection to Puerto Rico. So this literally needs to be, where you live, where you have to have a closer connection to Puerto Rico.
Where you breathe, where you eat.
Yeah, it needs to be
where you poop.
You need to be registered to vote here. You surrender your license in the States. This is where you would have your health insurance.
You have to poop here, though.
You have to poop here. Yeah, so a closer connection to Puerto
that's
Rico.
what makes me feel a closer connection.
Indeed,
somewhere.
Yes, pooping.
All right, so you have stayed in the crypto world. I remember during the last run, you started a mining operation.
I did, yeah.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
and still doing.
We wrapped it up. About 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what are you working on now in the crypto world?
So actually, not much. Kind of. Basically, just investing here and there, keeping an eye on projects, deciding what I'm going to be getting into as the market begins to swing back upwards. I kind of had such a great run. I mean, what I did was, at the top of the market, I kept an eye on some smart people, and some of those smart people began to exit.
Charlie Lee.
Yeah, I was actually watching Steve Wozniak, and as it hit about 19K, he's like, I'm out, and I started getting out too.
Smart.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of not sure what's next, but I am hanging out with the crypto community here. We've been doing all kinds of interesting deals, some around real estate, other types of deals. And I'm just kind of keeping my ear to the ground, seeing what's coming up. And,
well, you hinted that you just got some money, but you didn't really tell me.
Yeah. So it's cool doing these deals. So, these amazing people. There's a lot of levels of crypto community here, but the billionaires are here too.
Mm-hmm.
And
in Dorado.
No, not just in Dorado. As a matter of fact. No, it's interesting. The more established the hedge fund guys are in Dorado. The fund guys are in Dorado. The Bitcoin billionaires are actually in San Juan.
Okay.
Yeah. And, these guys are not, for the most part, they're not kind of who you think. They're not like popping bottles and this and that. I mean, yes, they do that here and there, but they're very interested in making the world a better place.
Right. Well, like Brock Pierce, right?
Like Brock.
They call, he kind of started the community here, and now they call it kind of Crypto Rico, with the goal of reinvigorating and reestablishing downtown, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes, they're doing all kinds of things, all over the world. And so I was in the middle of a real estate deal that I basically would have lost a lot of money on had we not closed by Friday. And so let's see, we'll kind of leave names out, but basically my buddy who I was working on the deal with went to one of the crypto billionaires that he was, friends with. They weren't particularly tight, and he asked for a meeting. Luckily, he was available the next day. Took a quick meeting with him, told him the situation. We needed a pretty substantial amount of money for the deal. It was like a quick bridge loan. They took the meeting. He said, you know what, I'm not liquid until next week, which would have been too late. He said, but there's somebody else here in this house that does have the money. He went over he said, would you like to meet him? He said, sure. He said, okay. He took him over. He said, hey, this is John. John, this is Bill. Names John.
Have been changed to protect
yeah,
the
exactly. He goes, John, Bill needs money for the next 30 days, or his friend's going to lose, a lot of money. Do you want to loan him the money? And he goes, I don't want to loan him the money. Do you want me to loan him the money? And he turns to me and says, I want you to loan him the money. He goes, okay, I'll loan him the money.
And just in case anybody's confused, you're Bill.
Anyways, I made up the names, but anyways, it was a substantial amount of money.
Yeah,
it was a lot of money, and the hands were shook, and the deal was done. And he just did it to help somebody out, But now the deals they're really helping this was just to help a person out, but they're doing all kinds of really cool stuff. And so my point is, I mean, there's some really cool stuff going on, man. And they really want to change the world. And there's a lot of bright minds here. And I'll tell you a little bit about Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is certainly not a third world country, but it's
kind of a 2.5.
It is. It's not first. But what's happening is, there are a lot of really happening people that are coming to Puerto Rico because of Act 20 and 22, which is what we're talking about here, the favorable tax treaties, if you will. And so you're getting these pretty amazing people, great minds who've accomplished some pretty incredible stuff. And now this brain power is coming to the island, and of course, money is coming to the island, and they're going to solve some pretty big problems here, and change this island. And as a result, many of these will become case studies that will change other islands and change other places. And I am so bullish on Puerto Rico. I am so excited. And what's unfortunate is that the press all over the world has two things to talk about when it comes to Puerto Rico.
The
hurricanes and the earthquakes.
Yeah.
And so if you watch any press, that's all there is when it comes to Puerto Rico. But Puerto Rico is amazing. There is so much going on this island. It is incredible. And I'm so excited for Puerto Rico. And I just want to shout it out to the world. And it's tough to get it out there, but we will. And I'm just so excited, for what's going to happen over the next 5 years.
Well, based on the community that, we're sitting in here right now, which will remain unnamed, there's a lot of people that are picking up on this, and I'm glad to visit, and I know that I'll be back.
And by the way, too, so when we moved here 2 years ago, there was a new couple every 2 or 3 weeks. Now we have 3 or 4 couples a week showing up. So it's starting to snowball. There's about 1,823 of us on the island right now. You'd think there'd be more.
There you go. Puerto Rico's full. Sorry.
You'd think there'd be more. I mean, the program's been around for almost 6 years, but it's really starting to snowball.
Well,
now.
And with the economy doing well, there's more people coming into wealth, right? And especially in the crypto.
Sure.
world.
Yeah.
Daven, appreciate you.
My pleasure.
DavenMichaels.com is the website. And if you need a extra hand on deck to help in your business, 123employee.com.
Yeah. Thanks, Joel. I appreciate that.
Rock on, brother.
Thanks, brother.
That was a great interview, Mr. Joel Comm. That's great. I know that we were chatting with him about, he was doing some Ethereum mining, some Litecoin mining and different things. And he's one of your homies down there in Puerto Rico. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, really nice guy, and grateful to him always for giving me that final gentle nudge. And Mr. Travis Wright, you mentioned that it's a friend's birthday today.
It is.
You want to give him a shout out?
Yeah, it's Brandon Bergeson's birthday, who is the CEO of MobiePay, MOBIEPAY. We talk a lot about them, but they're not a sponsor of today's show. But I just wanted to shout out to him because it's his birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Mr.
birthday, Brandon.
Yeah. But who is a sponsor is Divvy. And Divvy is the digital finance ecosystem that offers crypto debit cards, instant bank accounts, and fiat to crypto on and off ramps directly into your wallet. Just picture the ramp going right into your pocket. Boom. Oh, look at that. There's money. Just
get that ramp out of my pocket. What you doing with that ramp?
You want to be first in line to get your hands on their services. It's real easy. Go over to wallet.divvyproject.org. Enter your email. Boom. It's done. Of course, links to this and to the conversations that we had today and the show notes are all at badco.in/382. So, Mr. Travis Wright, should we tell them how to secure the NFT for this episode, which, by the way, is the 8th official NFT that we have released?
Yeah. So there are people out there who have most of them so far. So there's a lot of people who have collected a lot of them. Well, actually, they were at the event. So I know there's a few that have many of them. I don't know if anybody has collected all of them yet, besides maybe you and I and some of the people on our team. I know that there's, because you would have had to be at that very first event, right? You would have had to be in Miami to be able to have all of them, because that's the challenge you get. Because some we have proof of attendance and some we have proof of listening. But for this one right here, I believe the URL is badco.in/Ron. Pretty easy. I guess you could almost guess that one.
You could, but it is beautiful. You really, we've got an artist that kind of does the illustrations, and then you Travisfy it and badify it. And it's freaking beautiful. This might be the best looking NFT yet, and you guys are not going to want to miss this. You only have until Wednesday evening, which on the calendar is the 18th of March. if you don't claim it by 12 midnight Eastern time, then you're not going to be able to get it from us. I mean, maybe somebody will have it on the secondhand market, but I can't, nobody would want to sell these. This is your proof of listening. And Travis, you also showed me the prototype for the upcoming NFT that is going to be for those who are holding at least 5 NFTs in their wallet, and it's badass.
Yeah, we got an old school crest being built for the Republic of Bad Cryptopia, which is coming into play. And thank you. Yeah, this Ron Paul one was fun. I spent way more time on this one than I should have. Actually, I spent about 3.5 hours on this one, sort of working on it and making the right design, because I was doing stuff, and then I was like, because as you mentioned, we get a different illustrator each time to illustrate the guest that was on the show or the event that we're going to, or whatever. So each one has its own different flavor. And so whenever I get the piece back, then I got to see, okay, well, how do I turn that into a token? What do I need to do to make that look cool? Incorporate Bad Crypto, incorporate the episode number, the NFT number, the name of the person, and making it look cool. And the Dr. Ron Paul one, I think, did come out really sweet. So you're going to want to claim that one, because it's just a really cool one. And Dr. Ron Paul's just a really cool guy.
You mentioned they all have a different flavor. This one tastes like freedom.
This one tastes like freedom. Yeah, red, white, and blue.
Liberty Mint. That's
Liberty Mint flavor. Yeah, with Oreo. That's good.
So make sure you go to badco.in/Ron and claim this NFT. There's a tutorial on that page, a video that I made that shows you how to claim NFTs and open up a wallet that will store your NFTs. So make sure you do that. We really appreciate you guys. More great content coming your way. We're going to let Travis go back to his meditation. Now.
No, I'm gonna go make me some food now. I'm done meditating for
Yeah, I opened my eyes from meditation, and I thought,
hamburger.
I need food to be peaceful.
Meditated myself into some hunger.
Okay, everybody, say with me now. Stay bad. Stay bad. Stay bad.
Okay.
Who's bad?
The Bad Crypto Podcast is a production of Bad Crypto LLC. The content of the show, the videos, and the website is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice of any kind. You shouldn't make any decisions as to finances, investing, trading, or anything else based on this information without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional financial advisor. Please understand that the trading of Bitcoins and alternative cryptocurrencies have potential risks involved. Anyone wishing to invest in any of the currencies or tokens mentioned on this podcast should first seek their own independent professional financial advisor.